Hey guys, I decided to record our AP review sessions ahead of time because I know we didn't have a huge turnout for our Zoom review. So this will give you a chance to kind of watch on your own. I'm going to go over the basics of how to do these FRQs for the AP exam coming up. And I'm going to do this over the course of 3 videos because FRQ1 and FRQ2 are slightly different. But first, I want to get into some FRQ basics. So, we are doing an FRQ only test this year. Hopefully this is not new information to any of you. Hopefully you have gotten all of my emails and all of my information on that. So here's some general information from College Board that you all need to be aware of. First, make sure you're actually getting the communications from the College Board. Check your spam in your email. Make sure you're signed up with a working email address. This is how they're sending out the test tickets. Now, you will have access to your test ticket in your College Board account. So if you're not getting the emails, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean that you can't test, but double check because they are going to be sending you the test tickets through your email address that's connected to your College Board account. If something happens the day of the exam, your laptop dies, the internet crashes, your dog is barking, there's zombies on the front lawn, you can fill out a form to request to test on the makeup day through College Board. That will be available to you. But again, make sure you actually test on that first day because the longer you have between school ending and the actual test, the harder it's going to be to actually remember that stuff. But if you don't use your May test ticket for whatever reason, you oversleep or something happens, they will send you one for the makeup day. Just so you know, the way that we're doing it, and if you're visiting from another school to the YouTube channel, welcome. The way that we're doing it, refunds are going to be processed after the makeup day to make sure you don't actually test. They don't want schools to refund you and then you go in and the test is still in there because the schools haven't received the money or the schools haven't sent the money to College Board yet. You can't, the day of the test, you can't open the test and decide not to take it. It's like one of those snack fridges in a fancy hotel. If you open it, you're going to be charged for the test. So don't open the test the day of and be like, this is hard, never mind. It's College Board is going to charge you and the school. We've been told we're getting a how-to from College Board next week. If you are one of mine, I will be sending that out to you. If you're visiting from elsewhere, check with your classroom teacher on that. College Board recommends for testing purposes the day of, you have one window open to type your response and another window with the prompt and the countdown clock open. You guys are going to be able to copy and paste directly from a Google Doc or Word into the online test system if you're more comfortable doing that. You also probably will be able to type in the little text box. Again, we're going to get more information next week on that for you guys. You will use your test ticket to join the exam about 30 minutes in advance. You'll have to answer some questions to confirm your identity, do a typing sample, and the test will start at the designated time. So if you're logging in to take your AP exam, say here on the East Coast, it's 2 o'clock for AP Psych. If you're logging in at 1:59 to take the exam, you're not going to be able to test on time because you have to do that advanced writing prompt, and that's going to be true for all AP exams. So those of you who are taking multiple exams, make sure you're logging in about 30 minutes in advance. Number 7 is a super important point. Don't cheat. College Board will be coming after you guys in a lot more intensity this year than they have in the past. I mean, it's generally speaking, it's a pretty serious offense to cheat on an AP exam or an SAT or something like that, but this year specifically, they're reporting directly to colleges you apply to if you are caught cheating on the exam. Now, you are testing at home. You can use notes because there's no way to prevent you from doing that. But if you're logged into, say, like Reddit or something at the same time that you're taking the AP exam, they may flag you for cheating. Or if they see, like, you know, you post something on Instagram, like they may flag you for cheating and you don't want to get your score canceled. This year, while it is different and it is difficult because we've been out of school, I would say this might be your best chance at getting college credit on one of the AP exams because you can use your notes. It's a little bit shorter. And colleges are still going to recognize scores of 3, 4s, or 5s on these exams. Now, not everybody's going to get a 3, 4, or 5. They've set the cut scores. I'll talk more about that in a second. But if you are up to anything nefarious, stop. They've already caught someone who is planning something for the physics exam, so you don't want to get yourself in trouble. Or if you're visiting from elsewhere, am getting your classroom teacher is getting a copy of everyone's responses, so we'll know what went wrong in your test, and if you use the time to draw and upload a dinosaur in Paint, your teacher or me is going to see that. All right, so let's get into the basics of the FRQ number 1. So, as you know, you're going to have 25 minutes to respond to question 1, 5 minutes to upload your response, 15 minutes to respond to question 2, and 5 minutes to upload your response. We're going to focus on question 1 right now. This is going to be the concept application. Here, it's only units 1 through 7, so the social psychology unit and the abnormal psychology unit are out. Question 2 is going to be purely on research methods. That's its own video. Some general tips to remember for the FRQ. Read the prompt first, then read the terms, and then read the prompt again. Your second read through of the prompt, you should be thinking about how do these terms fit into the actual prompt, into the scenario that's presented. You don't need an intro or conclusion. It doesn't need to flow like an essay. You're going to always write in complete sentences. You're going to respond to the terms in order. I feel like this is easier this year than last because if you're unsure, you can put the terms into your Word document or whatever and then just skip the term and come back and type into it and still be in order while you're typing. Space each term out into its own paragraph. It makes it easier for the readers to read. And also making it easier for the readers to read is if you underline, bold, italicize, or all cap the term you are defining, applying, identifying. It's just easier for the AP readers to find. Okay, so question 1. You're going to have 8 terms to apply to a specific scenario in 25 minutes. For question 1, the help-hinder model, so how do these things help this person, how do these things hurt this person, has been popular in the last few years. If you're not familiar with all of the terms on the exam, it's okay. Just like every other year, you don't need a perfect score to score a 5 on the exam. The cut scores are going to be set for every level. So say, for example, and College Board won't ever tell us what the cut scores were, but say the cut score, the minimum score you need to score a 5 is a 12 out of 14 points on the FRQ. Well then, if you hit 12, those other 2 terms you didn't know really don't matter. Try to define and apply the term back to the prompt. The definitions alone are not going to score, but they can help out a weak application and can kind of back up what you said. Always apply, this is probably the most important part here, always apply the exact situation in the prompt. Don't give an example of something that you heard in class if it doesn't apply to the prompt. Try using the person's name to remind yourself. Here's an example prompt. Okay, John is running a marathon. How did the following help his performance? And I just gave you one term here, the cerebellum. So a good answer that will score you points all the time. John's cerebellum helps coordinate voluntary muscle movements and balance, which will keep him from falling over during the race. So you see here, I used his name, and I gave the example here, will keep him from falling over during the race. That's what he's doing. He's running a marathon. An answer that's technically correct, but will not score you points because it doesn't relate to the prompt, the cerebellum controls balance. That's just kind of a flat-out definition of what the cerebellum does, and it's not actually going to score you points on the exam. All right, so to look at question 1, I have a sample prompt here. I'm going to let you or encourage you to pause your video at this point and read through the prompt. I'll just give a second so that you can do that, so that you have time to do that, and then I will move on to 2 sample responses. Okay, so here is one sample written response. This is one that I have written myself. I again will let you pause your video so you can take a look at it, so you can read it. Okay, so let's score sample 1. This one would score a 1 out of 7. Intrinsic motivation on this one was the only one that would score, even then it's kind of pushing it because the definition and the application were not great. So what made this a particularly bad FRQ? First of all, some of the responses aren't in complete sentences. General adaptation syndrome, stress. That's not a complete sentence. That's not going to score points if that was what your answer is. The formatting on this one was hard to read. Now, that's not a complete disqualifier. For scoring, it just makes it harder to read. And it's all mushed together, and the less clarity you have in your response, the harder time the readers are going to have trying to find your actual answer. Only one term really relates to the prompt. The rest are vague definitions at best. While some of the definitions are valid and correct, again, the goal is always to relate to that prompt. Okay, I'm going to show you another sample here. This is sample 2. I'm going to give you a second so that you can pause the video and read it. Okay, here's the scoring on this one. So this is a perfect 7 out of 7 example. For this one, the formatting is clear. Again, it doesn't earn you any extra points. It just makes the actual points that are in there easier to find. The more hunting readers have to do for points, and the less clear they are, if the point isn't clear, you're not going to get awarded the points for it. The examples are specific to the prompt. I use Sachio's name and the specific situation for each response. The saxophone, the audition, the interview are all keywords that I used in there, and I bolded out the key terms in the response as well. Another important thing to note, I didn't need to really expressly define the terms, but from the way I used the term or the way I applied the term, the definition is worded in there. So, for example, by definition, the basilar membrane is where auditory transduction happens in the ear. It happens in the cochlea. It's the thin lining of the cochlea. That's not what the question is asking. The prompt wants to know how it helps him and how he uses it, and he uses it to help him hear. So hopefully that's kind of a good rundown for you guys on question 1 of the FRQ. Next video is going to be about the specific terms that may or may not show up on question 1.